All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. You're here with Tom and George. He might be on a call right now. George, if you're there, let us know. If not, he'll say he's waving, so I think he's on a call. He'll join us in a second. Welcome everybody to a Green Friday after what was getting to be a pretty disturbing week for a lot of people. I know there was a lot of tension out there, but we got a nice day today, big update today. So let's take a look. I just want to say hello. Oh, Eric saying testing 1, 2, 3. We are here. I think we were a minute or two late as usual. Hello, Eric. Hello, Sour Melon Gaming. These are members I just like to shout out and say hello to. Thank you guys for your support. Hello, FE702JR, His Honor, Cosmic Contrarian, Scott Richardson, Craig, Mr. J, Ironhead. Let me see if I missed anybody. Let me know. And hello to anybody else out there. That's just who I see in the chat. Although I haven't read all the chat, I see all those names. Right away, I would ask everybody if you'd be so kind as to smash the like button. You guys know it helps out the live stream big time. So,
Tom, I have the most important question for you right now.
what is that question?
Where's Sue?
Where is Sue? Sue is waiting and waiting. When I asked her, you know, before or after the vote, I did not realize how, you know, they got a lot of other stuff and clearances they need to get, including from the SEC. So, and I have left her alone. So there's a lot of people we can talk to. Mr. J said, any good news, Grandpa? I have no news yet, so thanks for asking. I guess next week I'll start to reach out. I think we're going to do another round of interviews with several different people. The last time we did a couple of interviews, some wild stuff happened right after, so we'll see what happens this time.
When will they merge finally?
They said it was going to be initially when the vote happened. I think that was September 12th, maybe, give or take. They said, you know, this would all be done by the end of September was their best guess, but it's been basically radio silence, so I don't know what hoops they're having to jump through and how much longer it's going to take. So I think until they're done with all that, I don't know that she can really come on and say anything.
Short.
Short, you're short.
I'm not giving you financial advice, but short.
This is not financial advice.
Short. I mean, that's crazy. We broke 28,000, Tom.
Boom. We're just I got 27,982, but we broke 28,000 a bunch of times today, including within like the last hour. So a nice run up on Friday. You can see Friday, for those of you who follow on Twitter or X as they now call it, it's the same thing, Talkin' Investing, no G, Talkin' Investing. At 8:30, the jobs report came out, and the market was up pretty big in pre-market. Bitcoin was doing well. You can see Bitcoin was right here, and then the jobs report came out, and bang. These are 15-minute candles, so 2 in a row. Bitcoin crashed. The stock market crashed. And I put a tweet out that said, this is absolutely ridiculous, and I view it as a buying opportunity. These knee-jerk reactions, and that's what I called it in my tweet, these knee-jerk reactions are, it's almost like they're planned. It's ridiculous. There was no line of reasoning. It doesn't take that long. First of all, the jobs report, we could talk about this later, but the jobs report, the numbers in there are, as far as I'm concerned, some of the numbers are, I'm going to call them nonsense. Let's just say they change them and revise them significantly, you know, as they reissue them every month. And the two real numbers, which are unemployment and wages, wage increase, those were right exactly on target. So nothing, there was no surprise in there other than the jobs added number seems like it's huge, but just wait until next month and they revise it and say, oops, sorry, that was, completely wrong. And all these numbers, I don't put a lot of stock in these numbers, but this happens every single month. We have this knee-jerk reaction. This time it was super quick. Sometimes it can be for several hours. Sometimes it lasts all day. This one, this was 2 15-minute candles, and then boom, it turned right around, and we were up the rest of the day, and we had a very nice green day, and we haven't had that in a long time. So it was very nice to see. Last week seemed like things were moving in the right direction. It was kind of a mixed bag with the Bitcoin miners. So there was a little bit of a reversal. We had, 11-week period that was just absolutely brutal for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin, not so much. Bitcoin miners were getting crushed. Last week, we had a bunch of miners that were green, and then all of a sudden this week we started to do this, very negative thing. We had one day where out of the blue, really for no reason whatsoever, all the miners were down significantly. A lot of them 8, 9, 10% on a day where everything was pretty flat on the day as far as Bitcoin went. So I know people were getting very discouraged. We did some polls on the members only earlier this week, and I got asked for some feedback over on Twitter/X, and everybody was, all the comments were, I don't want to say all, the vast majority of people were very discouraged. And now, here we go, it's Friday. On a Friday, which is usually a bad day, we get a big green day. Let's just take a second and review the actual numbers, because this is, and every once in a while, my trading view is a few minutes behind for some reason, but I'm going to go with these numbers. Bitfarms was up almost 6%. HUT was up 8.5%. Hive 6%. Cleanspark was up 6%. Riot, which is now the biggest by market cap, was up 10%. Marathon was up almost 9%. Cypher almost 9%. Iris Energy 9.8%, so almost 10%. The only red on the entire board was Bitdeer, and I will continue to say, as I say almost every single live stream, the price action on Bitdeer makes no sense whatsoever. First, it was running wild in up direction when everything else was crashing. Now, all of a sudden, it's pulled back significantly. Bitdeer has pulled back to the point where if there was more volume, I almost would think about buying it. I'm not going to buy it. It trades on razor-thin volume, and the trading never makes any sense. But I'll pull up that. I just want to pull that up because if you look at Bitdeer, they're now at $871 million. This was pretty close to a $1.5 billion market cap. Maybe 3 weeks ago? I don't know. Right? I mean, this was trading around close to, might have got over $14, 2.5 weeks ago. And now it's at $7.83. There's no rhyme or reason. This and again on 95,000 shares. And I always just like to put it in perspective. I'll pick a small one. I'll pick Terawolf. 6 million shares. Right, so that's a small one. If I pick, let's see if there's one of the, if I go to Marathon, which is usually, from a volume standpoint, 30 million shares on Marathon. And then you've got, on Bitdeer, you've got 95,000 shares. So, I don't know, I don't even want to do the math. That's 300 times the volume on Marathon versus Bitdeer. It's ridiculous. Because this market cap's getting interesting. Bitdeer does have an interesting story. They're a little bit different than the other Bitcoin miners, but they're putting more and more resources into actually self-mining Bitcoin. So those numbers continue to go up nicely. But I won't buy this. I'm not going to. This is almost illiquid compared to, its market cap. we'll look at the 1 day later, but I think some good things are happening. They tried to spook us. That's my opinion. That's what we talked about on the live stream, the members only live stream on Tuesday. I really think they tried to scare us out of what's coming in October. So I'm still a believer in October. I think this is going to be a nice up month. I still think we stand a shot at, taking a run at 30 to 32,000.
I'm not nervous for once in my life, guys, which is sad, but
yeah, no. Tell us how you feel, George.
I mean, it seems to be going exactly as I planned. It's at 28,000. My problem is that I didn't think they were going to take out the miners like they did the Bitcoin miners. That hurt.
It does hurt because even after a gigantic green day today, we still, we got beat up pretty bad for a couple of months. And then, 1 day in the middle of the week this week, they just took the miners out for no reason at all. So that's pretty tough. But I'm going to say we ended the week on a positive note. And more importantly, we really haven't broken out of this range. We got to get a little bit higher to really start getting to some numbers where I think the Bitcoin miners will run. And I think when we get there, past 28,800, I think 28,600 is, and I'll look at that. I think that's our recent high. Over here we got to, I got to go back further. I got to go to 1 day for this one. So if I look on the 1 day.
I still feel 30,000, by the way. I don't know why, but
I'm with you. We got to 28,613 on Monday. It's now Friday. So 28.6. You'll see this giant line at 28.8. So if we can get above that, we're still not above this blue line. The two things that I said we needed to do, and I've been saying this for about 3 weeks now, and we did one of them solidly. There was this descending line of resistance, and we've broken out of that. It's, we're well above that now. That's not even a factor. But the other piece of the puzzle was I think we need to start closing daily candles above this August 29th high, which was at 28,181. So we're not really closing daily candles above 28,000. I think if we start doing that, we take our run from 28 up to 30 and then maybe 32. The high for 2023 was right here on July 13th at this aqua line or whatever color you want to call this, 31,862 according to this chart. So, just under 32,000. That's why I'm saying I think this run up to 30 or 32. And really, if we really want to be inside of continue the bull run that we've been on since we bottomed in November, we really need to take out this high and get up to maybe 33 or 33.5 to set a legit higher high, from 32. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I do think 30 to 32,000 is what I've been saying for a while now. I'm sticking to that. It has taken longer than I expected. I thought we would do that by now, but this was a pretty brutal line of resistance. But we've done step one. We are sitting here on the verge of doing step two. The other thing is, I'm going to refresh this. The fear and greed index has been sitting 48, 48, 50. It's between 48 and 50, I think, 7 days in a row now. So this is neutral. We've been neutral for a week. And if you look at the chart, we've looked at this over time. You can see this is just up in a straight line since, really we bottomed out here in August. And we've been sideways for a long time since then. So while Bitcoin's been sideways, the fear and greed index is telling us that the fear is coming out of this market. And I think we're ready, after a full week of being neutral, maybe we start to get into that greed phase, which takes us closer to the top of our trading range.
Tom, as you take a pause in that breath,
go.
Please do me a favor and hit the like if you'll find this information entertaining and informational. Number one. Number two, this is probably more important than that. Not your keys if they're not in your wallet. So take your coins and put them in your wallet. Get them off exchanges.
It's a
Because
public
somebody was
service
talking
announcement.
about that. That is a public Binance. I'm still worried about Binance. I'm really worried about Binance. I would imagine something's going to happen. This McHenry guy, who's the temporary, what do they call him? The um,
Interim.
speaker pro se or something like that. Speaker pro se. He's very friendly to crypto. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but for that, but supposedly this McHenry isn't just a candy bar anymore. He's a very friendly to crypto, and so I'm hoping. But people, really get your keys off of those exchanges, please, please, please. Sorry, go on, Tom.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice. It's not
And
financial advice,
I
but if
also
you
think that will help Bitcoin and move the price of Bitcoin.
right, the
A
more
great
that comes
example.
off of exchange, that's a great point, George.
Yeah.
You want to
Is that,
elaborate on that?
yeah, so Robinhood is known to have one of the largest wallets out there now that hold Bitcoin, and they hold it for not only themselves, but they also hold it for their custodials for a lot of their members or whatever you want to call it, depositors. And if those people took those coins and moved them off, that they would have to buy more coins, and I think that would put a pressure on the price of Bitcoin just by if just the people in Robinhood did it. I think we'd be looking at different numbers.
The people in Robinhood, the people in Coinbase, the
Yeah.
people in Binance, if you're leaving it on chain, technically, it's counting differently as a part of some of the supply equations. And the on chain supply is already very low and getting lower, but let's keep going. Let's keep putting the pressure on.
And do you think CleanSpark? Everybody's talking about CleanSpark real quick. Do you think CleanSpark? Did they totally sell all their shares, or is there still more to go?
According to them, they have not, and this was almost a month ago now, but when they said they were fully funded, I believe they haven't sold any shares in a couple of months now. So that's the last update we got from them. They put something out. Matt put something out on Twitter that said basically since we reported, which was August something, we haven't sold any more shares. And I don't think they are selling any more shares right now.
Oh,
They did sell an awful lot of shares, but their dilution, I think, for the moment is behind them. They said they were fully funded for their infrastructure. They were fully funded for the machines that they needed to get where they're going. And CleanSpark is now hodling the vast majority of Bitcoin that they mine.
Do you know if they sold the stocks on the market, or did they do like a deal where somebody got a discount if they bought blah blah blah?
No, all the shelf offerings typically go literally just at the market.
Okay.
But they're they did their thing. I'm not sure if they ran their shelf offering out. I would have to refresh my own memory and double check and see what's going on there. But they did say they're not really looking to issue any more stock, and they've been adamant they're not going to do that. And they haven't talked about any plans to get past 16 exahash. That's their target. Now they're just debating, it looks like they were hoping to get there by December 31st. Now maybe it looks like January, and a lot of that has to do with construction. So we'll see what happens. If they're anywhere in the neighborhood of on time for that, I think that they did what
crucial.
they said, and it's a big home run for them, as far as I'm concerned. And the other game changer that they've done is if they're in a position now to hodl, between 500 and 600 coins a month from now to the halving, that is going to put them very close to the amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet that Riot has. Right now, Marathon's closing in on 14,000. Hut has about 9,000, and they really can't hodl anymore. Their mining at the moment is, in a spot where they can't do so. But they're still in second overall with 9,000. Riot's at around 7,000, and there's a chance that CleanSpark could get into somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet by the halving. And I say by the halving because I do believe for the next, whatever period of time, 6 months to a year after the halving, it's going to be very, very difficult for anybody to substantially hodl any amount of Bitcoin. So it's, they're not going to be locked in at those exact numbers, but the amount of hodling is going to go down drastically. And what I mean by that is the amount of additional hodling. So I'm not saying people are going to sell what they have. I don't think Marathon, Hut 8, Riot, or CleanSpark has any plans on selling any of this Bitcoin until, my personal guess on all of these would be, they need to see 6-figure type Bitcoin to start selling. And some of these companies, I will tell you, are doing some pretty sophisticated stuff as far as hedging now against, these massive volatility in Bitcoin. Marathon, in this month's operational report, put a sentence in there that no Bitcoin miner has ever addressed this before in any of their operational updates. It was kind of out of left field, but they did, I don't want to say a sophisticated, but they did a slightly, let's just say, not a beginner move. They basically used puts and calls to kind of lock in 1,000 of their Bitcoin so that they eliminated their downside on those Bitcoin. They talk about that in their monthly operational update. I thought it was a very strange note. They have almost 14,000 Bitcoin. Why they chose to use, an option strategy to protect themselves on 1,000 of those 14,000 Bitcoin is just another mystifying piece to their puzzle. I really want to buy Marathon. I think they're going to be a big, big winner at the end of the day, but I'm so confused by every single thing that they do that I just can't bring myself to buy them. There's other companies out there that I feel like I know what they're doing. They tell us what they're doing. I know what they're doing. I know why they're doing it. It makes sense. And there's not maybe this mystery behind the curtain thing that Marathon's doing is going to end up being the greatest thing in the world. But I'm like every other investor. I just don't care for the uncertainty. Like, what are they doing?
Edmund, thanks for that. Edmund said, once your funds clear Robinhood, you can move 5K in crypto daily off of that platform into a cold storage wallet. So again, not your keys, not your coins. Get them off the exchanges. And then write to me later and say, thank you, George, for telling me that.
So that's interesting. Thanks for letting us know that, Edmund. So 5,000 a day sounds like their limit. And George, I know you've run into this on other crypto exchanges.
Uphold doesn't have a limit. After the money clears, I think you had to keep it on it for 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, so they had so I guess all these different companies have their different nuances on what they do. To me, I don't like any of that. It should all be more fluid than that. If they want this to be, there's no restriction on your stocks, right? If I hold $1 million of Marathon stock, I could just sell it tomorrow and it's gone. So
which actually kind of makes me scared.
But that's the way all the other big boy, all grown up markets behave, whether it's stocks, commodities, whatever else it is. There aren't these other rules like, hey, we'll let you take your money back, but, a little bit here, a little bit there, so it's a part of the growing up process. It's a part of the maturing process and all of that. So these are all things that are ahead for Bitcoin in specific, cryptocurrency in general. These are all things that we're going to move towards that over time. And that's all going to help Bitcoin, in my personal opinion.
Tom, have you thought at all about the banks and how crypto is going to start working with these banks for the CBDCs?
I thought you were going to ask me a different question because I do have some stuff on banks later, but it's not relating to what you're saying. So we'll save that for later. It has more to do with the 10-year bonds. So separate conversation.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely happened. I mean, we're going to a CBDC. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, people are fools if they think we're not.
So what do you feel like the ramifications are for, in this instance, let's stick with Bitcoin.
I don't know if Bitcoin's I mean, they'd rather make their own. I mean, I'm beginning to think you guys are going to come after me for this one, and I probably shouldn't say it, but
Too late. You got to do it. You got to do it.
I think there's more proof now that Bitcoin was made by the CIA or a government entity than anything else. Sorry, guys.
This is the opinions.
Here it comes.
Are
Here
not,
it comes. Thank God I got 30 seconds. I think there's more evidence now that, you know, they put together the people and they, yeah, that's my theory. I'm beginning to come to that theory more than anything else. And yes, I believe that we could still see a 12K, sub 12K for Bitcoin before. I think it would be before the halving, because after the halving, forget it. It's destroyed. The whole Bitcoin market would absolutely be destroyed. I mean, so it's a probability, right? The probability is getting lower, but I think there is a chance. Some black swan event happens and it just takes it out.
Crypto Rich Crypto said CBDC is good for Bitcoin. Should we do a poll?
Yeah.
JR said, Mara, moving contrary to popular thought, usually that works in the markets. I just don't. I'm still. I'll tell you, be honest. I'm still not past getting rid of the $417 million. Now everybody was maybe mad at George for his comment. They could be mad at me for that one. I still don't get it. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm ever going to understand why they did that unless some gigantic game-changing thing comes out. I'll read later exactly what they said in their monthly update, and it's just totally has nothing to do with what they did. So, to me, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, in my personal opinion. I still haven't wrapped my head around that. The only thing that I allot for is that something else altogether is going on, and that, you know, converting that $417 million of debt had something to do with a much bigger thing that we don't know anything about yet at all, because every explanation I've heard, including the very generic talk from Fred in the monthly update, which I will read, makes no sense for me personally. It may make sense to you. Maybe I'm on my own island.
Here's what I think is going to happen, and it is for something that we don't know anything about, and they're going to run it right back up. And they're going to buy a lot of these smaller miners. These smaller Bitcoin miners that are, you know, sitting in good positions, that are going to be, they could even be buying, I mean, something large.
It would have to be a large move to do what they're doing.
I know, and I just realized what it probably is.
$417 million.
Yeah. I mean, something's going on, guys. They're not telling us what they're doing. They're trying to cover it up. But I guarantee there's some move is being made, because remember, Marathon doesn't have a really big infrastructure. I have a question. Is the Core's deal done? I mean, is it locked in stone how they're getting out of bankruptcy?
Well, they're not out of bankruptcy, so until they're out of bankruptcy, you know, that's when they'll.
Because I would think, I mean, I hate to say this, but I would think Core and Marathon would be a great merger. Or not necessarily a merger, but a purchase. If I was a betting man, and again, I know nothing, you guys all know this, but what I would say is that they're doing something with Core. Because Core owns all their stuff,
Core has a lot more infrastructure. They did this a different way. Their infrastructure, as well as self-mining and hosting, and Fred has said, you know, even in his interview with us, he said they're getting away from this asset light concept. They're going to be in a world where they are vertically integrated, not just through the software side and the pool, you know, having their own pool. They're gonna do what the other Bitcoin miners are doing and get control of their world from more of a top to bottom approach. So
And
I don't know. Maybe that's the way they'll do it. I mean, that would make them the monster of all monsters.
I know. That's why I'm thinking they're going to do it. It has to be something large like that. I mean, this is just, listen, you know that I'm not a big fan of Fred. Sorry, Fred, but I've never, I'm glad you listened to some of my advice. But when you look at what CEOs are thinking, these guys are thinking more from a macro level than a micro level, right? And he realizes he messed up with this whole infrastructure problem with his company because of all, you can't rely on other people.
Well, and they
No
paid
one's
the
going to do
price. It's a year and
right.
a
Yeah.
half later, and they're still
Yeah.
not at 23 exahash.
And so I mean, I think when they listen, it's not like a right or a wrong answer on what a CEO does, right? I mean, he went with his gut. He thought this would be the best thing for his company. That was his decision. That's the reason they went that way. But I think they just did a 180 on that here recently in the last 2 months.
They did,
And
but I give them credit for doing that because
Yeah.
I do think they did get to where they're going to get to 23 exahash. And I know for those of you who continue to read every single month, it's imminent, it's imminent, it's imminent. Well, I guess that term is relative. So the original goal, I think, was the middle of 2022. They were supposed to be at 23 exahash. It's now looking like it's going to be the end of 2023. That's a year and a half. And what a lot of people will say, and I more defended Marathon on this. I just felt like if they got there, if they could just get to the finish line, if it takes longer, I didn't think it was going to be a year and a half longer, but if it takes longer, that makes them still a monster. And
Yeah.
so, and they did mine over 1,200 Bitcoin. I think they were 4.3% of the entire network as far as number of Bitcoin mined in the month of September. I'll pull up their operational report and verify that, but it was something to that extent. So they crushed everybody, and I think that number is going to, I see them by the end of the year, or certainly before the halving, I think they're going to be mining 2,000 Bitcoin a month. Those are big, big numbers. But I know some people will say, well, they could have been mining, had they mined 2,000 Bitcoin a month for the last year and a half, they'd have 25,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet instead of 14,000. Well, nobody's perfect. And so I don't mind so much all of that. And I like their shift. And I like that he said it out loud. I just, Crypto Golfer said, if there's something big coming, wouldn't you rather be on board the train? I don't want to be on board a train if I don't know where it's headed, because is it headed off the end of a cliff?
Relax, have some fun, enjoy the ride. Beautiful
That's
out.
right.
So Julian, I believe that was his name, said something about if the Bitcoin was created by the government, why is the SEC so against it? So I'm going to speak kind of openly. I don't think the SEC or the person that's in charge of the SEC, and I won't say his name because I don't want to get copyrighted or anything, or banned. I think that he is following a plan that has been given to him, quote unquote. I'm not saying it's correct or right, or do I don't know anything, but I'm thinking that they know that if a spot ETF comes out, that Bitcoin's going to go ballistic. Everybody knows this. And so let's be honest, they know if they keep that off, that we're going to keep the price suppressed. And for whatever reason, the powers that be that make these decisions, boom, that's the decision they've made. So when that decision is gone, and they say, hey, we want Bitcoin to skyrocket, I believe that you'll see a reversal of the decision. And when I know it's crazy when you think about like XRP spent like $300 million to defend their position. I think that was all just smoke and mirrors. I think that whole thing was already planned. Everybody knew which way it was going to go, and I think they did that because people leaked what was going on with XRP and how it was going to be used. And I think that XRP's has I would say 2 to 3 years before we really see a sizable price jump. But that's what I think is going to happen with XRP too. I think that was all decided. I think these are all the games that you see is just the games of large billions and billions of dollars that are playing out in front of us.
I'm just finishing typing a poll. Give me one more second.
Oh yeah, that person works for Goldman Sachs. Yeah, come on, this everything that's going on with crypto is correct for whoever has the determination of the billionaires that currently have the largest wallets. I'm telling you, Bitcoin at some point in time will be worth over 6 figures. How about that?
6 figures is a modest prediction.
I know, but that's still a 4x from here. That's still,
That's true. That's a fair point.
55 people like us, Tom. Any way we could get any more? Is there any way we could get any more?
Yes, please.
A little love?
If you're willing and ready and able, if you would please smash the like button. It is the single thing that helps the channel the most, and it helps these live streams in real time. The algorithm shows them to more people. We get more people. We get a better conversation. So it's much appreciated. And thank you to the now 56 people that have smashed the like button. And if you would be so kind,
57.
Really
we can do 58. Come on, guys.
We can do it. We can do it. This was a good, nice green day.
So. Oh, if we get to 60, I'll tell you something I have. And if anybody's in Miami,
we're at 63.
64. 64.
Thank you, everybody, for smashing the like button. Appreciate it.
Hopefully, people have joined our Discord, and they're on our Discord. Please email me if you would like this. We have 4 tickets, club level, for the game this Sunday with Miami and the Jets.
Do you have how many?
Not promising them to you or anything like that, but if they're still available, go to the Discord, send me a message, and I'll try to get you in contact. And they're gratis, by the way.
So wow! Thank you, everybody. 75 likes. That's very generous, George.
Yeah. Thank you.
It could be a Jets fan that ends up getting these tickets.
Yeah, could be. And I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's butt. I'm not positive they're still available, but as of a few minutes ago, they were still available. So
I won't do a lot of football talk, but I gotta mention that Crypto Rich Crypto said, "Go Bills." So go Bills. The Bills are playing in the UK this weekend. So to our friends on the stream that are over there, you can check out the Bills if you're interested.
But going back to Bitcoin and Marathon time, so do you think if that happens, that will be a very good thing, right? Overall for Core and also Bitcoin? And
if those
Marathon?
two merge like that?
Yeah. Because if Core goes out of business, isn't that going to affect the difficulty rate?
I don't think Core's going to go out of business at all. Here's the thing. There's a difference between the Core. I'm more worried about people that own Core stock right now. Core's going to come out of Chapter 11. They mined, I think, 950 Bitcoin in the month of September. They put their operational report out. So, it's not as... They're no longer, they used to be bigger than Marathon. Now Marathon is the largest, in every way, shape, and form. But Core Scientific, if they get to restructure this is what Chapter 11 is all about. They're going to get rid of a lot of their debt. They're going to restructure a lot of their debt. A lot of that, by the way, is going to be by means of turning it into equity, which is why the equity holders are always last in a Chapter 11. That's the letter of the law.
Say
that's
always.
how Chapter 11 works.
Don't say always. I remember of a time that was not the case. Don't say always.
That's not true. They're always last. That doesn't mean they do poorly.
Trust me. Don't say always. Do you remember the one?
No, there have been people that have come out of Chapter 11 and the shareholders are successful, but they were still put in last place. Everybody else gets paid first. Even unsecured creditors, the accounts, people that have accounts payable get paid before any
before the
money
stock. Okay.
goes to the
I'm
stock.
sorry, I was thinking of a GM time where the preferred people didn't get paid first.
Oh, yes.
I don't need to go there. I'm gonna put the
We had a company in Southwest Florida that's one of the most successful Chapter 11s of all time. Hertz is headquartered in Fort Myers, and they went into Chapter 11, and the shareholders came out and did great. So maybe that's going to happen for Core Scientific shareholders, but I have literally no way to know that. So, but my point to all that was, so I don't know what's going to happen to the shareholders, but Core Scientific will go on. They're not going anywhere.
It's funny, there's people on Discord right now as we talk, texting in Discord right now as we do this. It's funny.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
They should come over here.
No, they are. They're over there.
Oh. So while we were talking, I put up a poll. When will the Bitcoin ETF be approved? We've asked this before. I just want to see where people are at now. It's been a month, at least a month and a half since we asked this. What does everybody think? Is it going to happen by the end of the year in 2023? Is it going to happen before the halving in 2024? Is it going to be in 2024 but after the halving? Or is it going to be in 2025 or beyond? Let's see what everybody thinks. 80 likes. Thank you, everybody, for smashing the like button. It's a big help.
And it's a public service, another announcement. Tom probably won't ever hit you on Discord. There's a lot of imposters. I'm going through the members right now, and I found somebody, and we just kicked them. So do me a favor, if you ever get a message from Tom, hit me up. Mine's Kudab, C-O-M, so Kudab, which is C-U-D-A-B, C-O-M, and you can talk to me, and I'll get back to you really quick. We're at 1,081 members, so thank you very much, everyone. But remember, if you get something that says talking investing, it's probably not Tom.
Yes, and on top of that, I'm just going to generically say, without digging any deeper...
I dug a little deeper. That person might have got kicked.
Okay, so if it is, it's the first one ever, and it's not for what they said. I just want to be clear, and we'll get to the bottom of this. We do not have any problem with differences of opinion. So if you're in our Discord, and especially if you're in our members-only Discord, we don't kick people out of our members-only Discord. If they get kicked out, of course there are terms of service. This is not a free-for-all. You can't just say, here's what we don't want. We want differences of opinion. We welcome differences of opinion. George and I on the stream often disagree, so we have no problem with differences of opinion. But what we don't want is people coming in and just saying, you're a clown, you're an idiot, you're a moron. Those things are not contributing in any way, shape, or form, and people pay money for these memberships. So they don't need to pay money to have somebody come in and, say not things that are not contributing to the conversation and that are, abusive. So that would be the only types of comments we frown upon. But if you have a difference of opinion, there was somebody, and it sounds like they may or may not have, I'm sure they got kicked out of the public. If you're doing that on the free live stream, on the free Discord, you're not adding any value to anybody, and, there's no sense to it. On the private Discord, the same thing applies. There's terms of service for everything. So, please try to have a civil discourse on the Discord. But differences of opinion are absolutely welcome. And anybody who says anything to the contrary, that is patently false.
Like, I just blocked 2 people. And Tom, did you know we're sitting at over 100 members? Did you know this? I didn't know this.
And our membership, we're actually much more than that.
Yeah, I
right
didn't know
now.
that until I just looked it up.
So
Thanks, guys. It's awesome.
yeah, yeah, that's why I like, definitely thank you very much to the members. It's our membership's only $5 a month, so if you're interested, there is a members only private Discord. We do a members only live stream every single week. We have a big library of videos that we've done for members only, so there's a lot of benefits. It's $5 a month. It's the cheapest one out there. I'm just mentioning it if you want to help support the channel in a world where, for whatever reason, YouTube revenue from advertising is, approaching, numbers that are closer to zero than anything else. So, for those of you who know or don't know, if you're new to the channel, I do spend 50, 60, 70 hours a week on this. And I'm glad to do it. I love doing it, but that's
Guys,
why we offer.
You're not going to believe this one too, guys. We actually have females in our Discord. I could not believe it.
This is crazy. Yeah, that's a major development. We've always been somewhere between 95 and 100% male as far as YouTube tells us.
Yeah, or they're looking like females. Maybe they're not really.
Oh well, we never know if they right. We don't know these people in person.
We're not judging that deep. So okay, so Tom, what's your feeling with Bitcoin for the rest of the year?
I mean, my short term is that I do think October is going to finish out nicely. November, the fourth quarter, I don't know. I've been watching a lot of other people's technical analysis. In addition, you guys know I do all of my own technical analysis. I've been trying to take a step back, look at the 4-year cycle, look at what everybody else is saying and thinking. And, that doesn't shape my opinion, but it's nice to be able to put it into context with other people. And I think I'm a little bit more bullish than the standard issue. A lot of people that are following the technicals are looking at maybe some sideways activity all the way up to certainly through the end of the year, and maybe even up to the halving itself. There's some evidence of that, cyclically, but I will tell you, we had a gigantic outlying event in the last halving. We all know what that was in March of 2020. And, the halving was in May of 2020. So, in my opinion, the last cycle, the halving happened very quietly. Even the Bitcoin people, and, that was not top of mind in May of 2020, right? The world was basically shut down and other things were going on. And every single asset across the board hit multi-year lows, just a month and a half before that. So I don't think that was a part of a cycle. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of, I looked at this last night for a long time. And if you look at the 2016 cycle, I think there's some evidence that if we mirrored that, and it very much depends. This is why technical analysis is more of an art than a science. It depends, which day you pick to go from here to there. We're about 7 months before the halving, but depending on whether you go 7.5 months before or 6.5 months before, it could be the difference between 150% run up or, a 35% run up. There's wild swings in Bitcoin in the past. So that's why I think it's so easy for a lot of people to say, look, all the halvings look just the same, because, inside of those wild swings, if you pick the right dates, you can create what it's the old statistics argument. So there's a lot of people, I guess my point would be, are pretty, I would say bearish or, neutral over the next 6 months. I am not. I'm particularly bullish in October, and I do think we're going to be at higher numbers than this. If we're at 28,000 right now, I think 40 to 45,000. That's my lower case scenarios going into the halving. I even think we'll beat those scenarios. So I don't know that we'll get to 50, Having said that, if certain things happen, the other piece of the puzzle is just like an outlying event occurred, around, in the early 2020. There's some big events that could occur between now and then. Most specifically, a Bitcoin ETF would be something unlike anything that's ever happened. So there's specific events. There's the market in general. There's the economy. We've got a lot of global geopolitical events going on. Inside of all that, I would say all other things being equal, I'm bullish on Bitcoin for the next 6 months. And that doesn't mean I think it's going up in a straight line. We've seen, this is our third. We're now more than 3/4 of the way through the year 2023, believe it or not. And so we have had 3 20% pullbacks inside of what is now, we're almost coming up on, I'll call it an 11-month really bull run. But inside of that bull run, there have been 3 20% pullbacks. I think that's going to continue. So I think the next leg is up.
I wish I was with you, Tom.
Why?
I don't think the next leg is up.
Oh, you wish you were with me on that concept.
Yeah. I just wish I was. I just don't. I can't get there. There's just still the uncertainties of those things have to shake out. And, I think that, again, Bitcoin has not separated from the NASDAQ yet. And when and if the NASDAQ gets destroyed, then I think that there could be some problems for Bitcoin.
There's to add to what you're saying, particularly the Bitcoin miners have showed strong evidence in the last, couple of months. They've been following the NASDAQ a lot more than they've been following the price of Bitcoin in this, 2 or 3 month window of time. The performance of the Bitcoin miners is, depending on the miner, a 4 or 5 or 6x worse than what Bitcoin did in that period of time. And, when Bitcoin is sideways and the NASDAQ's down 1%, you get Bitcoin miners down 7% or 10%. So we've been getting drastic moves, leverage plays off of the NASDAQ in the short term. I do think, there will be an equalizer on the other side of this. That's the way it's played out in the past. So I think there's some built-in catch-up for the Bitcoin miners. For Bitcoin itself, so in other words, if Bitcoin can just get to 32,000, I think we'll have an outsized reaction in the Bitcoin miners to the upside.
I mean, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a good month. I don't take that away.
Cosmic Contrarian saying Bitcoin's going to have to go way up for most of these miners to stay in business after the halving. Bitcoin's definitely going to have to go up, and it depends from miner to miner. There's certain miners that have, strong enough balance sheet that they have a much longer time frame that they can survive, but we're not looking to just invest in things that are going to survive. We're looking for companies that are going to thrive. So to that extent, yeah, we want Bitcoin. Every $5,000 between here and the halving makes a big difference for a lot of these Bitcoin miners. There's 3 or 4 that are an exception, that they're just going to be there, period. Even if Bitcoin retests new 4 or 5 year lows, they'll work their way through it because they have, such a strong balance sheet. But for a lot of these other ones, they're very dependent on Bitcoin at least having some type of move to the upside. I do see there's a growing, and I almost feel like people parrot each other because I keep hearing the same thing. Oh, if Bitcoin doesn't get to 60,000, a lot of these miners, most of these miners are going out of business. I did have one person on Semantics say, well, most is actually technically from a dictionary definition standpoint, 51% would equal most of the miners. So when I hear, somebody say most of the miners are going to go out of business, out of 20, I don't think they're talking about 11. I think they're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18. That, to me, that is most. But yes, if you want to do a technical definition, then, that would be correct. But I think that most of the miners won't go out of business at numbers. I don't think we need to hit 60,000. I don't think we need to hit 55 or even 50. Somewhere above 35,000, I think most of the miners will survive. They're not going to thrive necessarily, but most of the miners will survive above 35. And by the time you get to 50, there will be some miners that are thriving. And by the time you get to 60, even more so. That's my personal opinion. The way I dig the numbers apart. And there's a lot of variables. We don't know what the difficulty level of the network is going to be. So if that's a surprise, that could change the equation. If there's
Do you think there's a chance that they're going to pump them like these larger companies? I'll just say it that way. That they're going to pump these guys, and then all of a sudden, we're going to be back to 3.5 trillion in crypto, and these guys are going to have a very healthy market cap.
Are you saying do that and then rug pull, or just do
No,
that?
I'm not saying that. Do
forward?
that and run it forward. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a time, like by the end of the year, somebody writes a letter every year and saying talking maybe about crypto?
Maybe January 1st letter will have some different information in it.
Yeah.
I do. I'm optimistic, and I'm optimistic based on my analysis. It's doesn't mean I'm right. There's just too many variables. Nobody can sit here and say this is what's going to happen next. Put it in the bank. We don't know. There's just too many variables. But for me, especially for the miners that I'm investing in, even if you put a reasonably negative case scenario together, and that's what I like to try to do. A break-even type of a case. What if this happened? And, those are all negative things. Now, you can't build in, what if a true black swan event? What if a monumental, game-changing, 2008 financial crisis type of an event occurs that relates to Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? I can't predict that. I don't know that. But if things remain within a reasonable range, I think I feel like particularly if you guys watch the channel, if you're new here, you can check out my videos. I'm crystal clear on the Bitcoin miners that I'm investing in and the ones that I like. Not financial advice. Even all of our members, we have lots of difference of opinions among members. So we just went through a lot of people when I said, I'm not on board the marathon train. There's a bunch of people in the comments section that are on board the marathon train. And there's some people where that's their highest conviction stock that they're holding among the Bitcoin miners. So, it's just not for me. Crypto Fever saying, agreed, Tom. People copy each other. Crypto Fever. Besides the 4-year cycle, there is the global liquidity crisis and the ETF demand side pressure that none of us will know how much that will all bullish events. Right. And those are the variables we know about. What about, the next thing that comes out of left field that, we're not even talking about?
Yeah, and there's going to be things like, sorry, I was answering somebody's question about Discord. There's going to be things that come out of the left field. That's the problems I have.
Right, and we never know.
It's very, we've already saw it go from when we started this, what was it, 3.5 or 5.5 trillion? What was it?
Over $3 trillion.
And we watched it get down to as low as 600 billion, I think is what it got. 6 or 8. It was 800 billion.
I think it was 800 billion. It got, you were calling for it to go under $1 billion, and it did.
Yeah. I called it at 3.5 trillion, Tom. I said, we're going below $1 billion. I mean, $1 trillion. And Tom's like, no, never.
Yeah.
But we did.
So for all the predictions I just told you and what my thoughts are over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, I will say, sometimes things take a lot longer than, the timing. And this is not just a Bitcoin thing and a cryptocurrency thing. The stock market is built for timing to crush people. That's how the people that play this game with the big, gigantic money take money from the, people, the retail investors like us. It's through time.
Are you gonna say your stat you told me?
Yes.
Not the
Let me
top
first read.
point
We
zero
got
zero 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 1%. Sorry.
we got a super chat from Tariq. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, so I want to read that. Thank you very much. What's your thoughts on Wolf after reaching $1 and bouncing to $1.18? So thanks for that question. I've always been very skeptical of Wolf because of their debt. But somebody asked me, I think today, either on Twitter or in the comments on one of my videos, to get Paul on from Wolf. We had him scheduled to come on to the show, and things fell apart on his end. He ran into a delay, and we just never got back together. So that wasn't his fault. So I wouldn't mind getting him back on the show and having him talk about that. I do think Edmund put together some statistics about their energy cost. I've been worried about their energy costs going up, but I'm going to bring up a chart because I was pleasantly surprised with September's report from them as far as their cost of energy goes. But there is one more piece of the puzzle that I would like to ask Paul directly. Give me a minute and let me see if I can pull this up, and I'll finish answering that question.
Uh-oh.
In the meantime,
if you haven't already done so, please hit the like button. We have a private member stream on Tuesday after the market close where Tom will do a deep dive into stocks, and it's based on a poll that we do, and we figure out who wants to hear about what stock, and then Tom will go deep dive. And how many hours would you say you spend on that, Tom?
it definitely varies. Probably the easiest one I've ever done, would be like 6 or 8 hours. I've had some. There have been 2 or 3 that jump into my head that were more than 50 hours of work for me to get the video out. And we had a little streak going. It's more than 2. It's definitely at least 3 or more that were like whammies. One of which was a company that I didn't realize was a multi-layered, massive conglomerate. So digging it. If you guys pick that stock, I'm gonna do the deep dive, whether it takes me 6 hours or 50. XRP would be the exception. I had way more than 100 hours into that one. I think that may be the only cryptocurrency we've ever picked on the deep dive. So it can vary, but really, typically, for most of the companies, it's anywhere from 8 to 20 hours, I would say. And sometimes I get lucky. It's a company that I'm already very familiar with.
Like Nano.
There have been 3 or 4 that are companies that, I've stayed current. Even if I've done deep dives in my own due diligence in the past, if it's not current, I kind of got to start, if it's 6 months is a long time. If I haven't looked in 6 months or 9 months, and time flies. So, you think you're up to date on all these, but there's so many stocks that I follow. It's easy for even 9 months to go by and for me to not really have taken a close look. And by then, the story could be different. So you got to update your due diligence. And that's true for everybody. If you're investing in stocks and, you're not
Tom,
looking, you go months. Go ahead, George.
Do you think we're at the bottom of the stock market right now? Do you think the stock market's just going to continue to go up?
I don't necessarily think that. I don't have the same feelings about the market as I do about Bitcoin. And I know that their journey has been kind of traveling together for quite some time now, but I think Bitcoin could go up in a world where the market I'm not expecting the market to crash, but I think Bitcoin could go up while the market keeps going sideways and maybe trickling down a little bit. Bitcoin's been very resilient recently, and we'll get to a couple charts where I'll show you exactly what I mean by that, because Bitcoin's already recently been outperforming the market. Not to the extent where you can say, wow, there's just been a clear divergence and they've gone their own separate ways. By no means, but and I do think that day is coming. These are Bitcoin has a wildly different purpose than the overall S&P 500 or even the NASDAQ. It trades a lot closer to the NASDAQ because the NASDAQ is, more tech, more risk on, and certainly at the moment this is a risk on asset, but in the long term, I think it's going to be the exact opposite. Once we get to where we're going, I think it's going to be more of a risk off asset. But in the middle, I do think we'll have, big runs in Bitcoin that get us to that point. We're nowhere. I believe we're much closer to the beginning of this process than we are to the end of this process. And the end being not, the last Bitcoin mined and the end of time, the end being a fully mature asset that, is going to behave, like it, now Apple's a fully mature asset, right? There's no gold's
Risk
a fully
on.
mature asset.
Risk on. Sorry. Like fish on.
We haven't been risk on in a long, long time. This has been one of the most risk off assets. There's more companies down 90% in the last 2 years than I've ever seen in my life by a mile. It's overwhelming. And if you do 70%, it's staggering. There's a few companies that have done well. The majority of companies have gotten really, really beaten up in the last, between 18 and 24 months.
Oh, and this just in, Nate. This is to you, Nate. This just in, and that is, should I do it? BitBoy is no longer BitBoy. Say his name. My name is Ben. That's what he says. I'm no longer BitBoy. I'm Ben. I grew up, man. And then
that's what
that
he
little
said.
problem. Yeah, I grew up, man. I'm Ben. I thought that was so funny. I'm not BitBoy, man. Sorry. That guy is just a joke. I don't know if anybody watches him, but I mean, I don't think he was ever arrested. I think that was all just a stage to him trying to get more people to watch him. I guess, Tom, that's what we got to do. Forget the facts and all this stuff you do, like research.
Just go
you
hype.
Gotta go, yeah. BitBoy.
We'll go full hype mode. All right, I'm just going to take a look at Terawolf, and this is to follow up with a comment admin made, I think, on a members-only stream, talking about the trajectory of... I've been a little worried about the trajectory of their cost per coin. It was in the mid-6,000s 4 months ago. It got all the way up to over 12,000 for a month. It went down in August, and now if you look in September, it's down to $9,880. So to me, this was very encouraging. This is a nice step in the right direction, because the biggest selling point for Terawolf, from my perspective, was I thought they were going to have a lower average cost per coin than all of their peers, and they were starting to, revert to the mean and be very similar to a lot of other companies. And if they, still there's that group of companies that are, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cheaper per coin than the average, and that makes a big difference. And they were in that group, but now this month makes them even a little bit more of a leader. So I like what I see there. I still would love an answer on how they're going to get by. They restructured all their debt, but they didn't get rid of their debt. So, they got $100 million issue going on there. They do have, they've talked about how they're going to ramp up. I think 7.9 exahash is their next target. So there's a lot of good things going on here. On the other side, I would love to know what their strategy is with this debt, and that I want to understand, in a bearish case scenario, is this going to roll at some point? Is this going to roll them over if I'm wrong and all this takes 6 months or 12 months or 18 months longer than I think it's going to take? So this to me is a little more of a little higher risk, but maybe a little higher reward if things go the right way, because they do have a lower cost per coin. So overall, I was pleased with this operation report. 329 Bitcoin was a little disappointing to me. They're at, I think, what did they say? 5.5 exahash. So we'll see how that number goes over time. So I'm still up in the air on Terawolf. I have my reservations, but, you know, there was some good news in this most recent. Oh, this is a whole nother country heard from. Let's not even go there yet. Let's end this poll. And let's see where we landed on the poll. All right. A little bit different. Will the Bitcoin ETF, when will the Bitcoin ETF be approved? 19% say in 2023. That is a little lower, and I'm just trying to, I don't have the exact numbers from the last time we did this, which was like a month and a half ago, but that's a little lower. 64% say prior to the halving. So altogether, actually, that's 83% think that this is going to happen before the halving. That's fairly similar. 12% think after the halving, but still in 2024. The biggest change to this, and it's a very small number, but we did get 103 votes, which means 5 or 6 people think it is actually going to go beyond 2024 into 2025 or beyond. The last time we did this poll, we had a similar amount of votes, and 0 people thought it was going to go beyond 2024. So a lot of ways this is pretty similar, maybe a little more bearish than it was the last time. I thought it was going to be a little more bullish, so it's always interesting. That's why we do these polls. Hopefully this is information for everybody. Take with it, you know, what you will. Take it with a grain of sand. Put it together with all the other information that you have. So we'll end that poll.
End it.
It's over.
Done. Sorry, I'm trying to find. So I got hacked, guys. Like, somebody stole my. So I had a phone at my office, and somebody stole the phone. I don't know who did it. And so they got me for, like, I don't know, $5 grand, $6 grand. But that, I mean, yeah, it sucks, but I got most of the money back. I think I got all the money back. But what sucks was I had to change, like, every password and then do 2FA. And now, anytime you got to look or find anything, then you got to remember what the new password is. So don't ever get hacked.
It's I'm sure no one will on purpose, but
So that's what I'm dealing with now, by the way.
I'm typing up another poll, FYI.
FYI. Do me a favor and hit the like button, please. Tom, he does this because he's trying to save us from the doom that's coming. Did you hear me, Tom? The doom is coming. The doom and gloom. We've already had $2.5 trillion lost in crypto. So basically, I think all they're trying to do is steal our money. They are trying to steal our money. Look at inflation.
Well, that's true. This has been a rough run on inflation. All right.
I saw a commercial for Polestar, by the way, Blue.
The next poll is up. Bitcoin price at the halving. Sorry, George. Under 35K. So this is at the halving. This is the halving somewhere in April of 2024. We're about 7 months away. Are we going to be under 35K where we are right now? Are we going to be between 35 and 45? Are we going to be between 45 and 55 where, in my personal opinion, most of these miners are going to be okay at those numbers? That's my personal opinion. We'll see what you guys think. Are we going to be above 55K? That means maybe a chance at getting back to our all-time high. What's everybody think? Voting is free. Cast your vote. And yes, thank you everybody for smashing the like button. And if you have not yet, please smash the like button. We got 113 likes right now, so we reached our goal, but let's keep going. It's much appreciated. And it's a green Friday. So let's all be happy.
I think we got to do another stream, Tom, someday. so we can talk about things that I'm doing and things that you're doing.
Things.
No, I'm doing big things. I'm doing big
Big,
things, Tom.
big things. Other
It
big
doesn't
things that.
take money. It doesn't take money to do big things. It takes a brain and execution.
It takes an effort and belief
Yeah, belief.
and
Anybody
conviction.
here, if money's stopping you from doing something, add me on Discord. I'll help you figure it out. I'm not saying I'm giving you money, but I'll help you figure it out. People, that's the thing, is you got to figure out ways to get over the hurdles if you believe in something that you're talking about doing. Sorry, but that's what I believe.
No, that's and this is a lot of what we're here to talk about. I know we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about the Bitcoin miners a lot, but you know, we're all trying to succeed here. We're all trying to financially succeed. That links to, you know, life success. So no topic is off limits. Apparently, except for football, where some people do get rather agitated when we talk about football.
Don't get me going on insurance, too. That's what I normally talk about. I talk about insurance all day. Insurance!
John Q. Public, thanks for noting. Bitcoin just crossed 28,000 again, so we're above 28K.
Just so you know, I voted between 35 and 45 is what was my vote.
And I'm not looking at the results yet. So I'm going to wait and see where people are at.
One good pump and everybody becomes bullish. I'm not bullish at all. Nope. I'm bullish for the month. That's about it.
I mean, I will be honest, having a nice green day on Friday, I'll have a little bit better weekend. I mean, this doesn't, obviously, no 1 week or 1 day changes any of our lives. But it's nice it's a pleasant change to have a big green Friday. It's been a long time, and this was a big Friday. I'm going to go through some numbers for those of you who joined us late, and I don't really think I've gone through this. Terawolf, so whoever was just asking me about Terawolf, the market likes what they saw because Terawolf is up 14.5% today. I think that was the leader out of all the, you know, major Bitcoin miners. When I talk about this, there are some nano cap stocks, under $50 million, under $20 million. Some of them are under $10 million market caps. It's very hard. Those have unusual swings on any given day, but at those tiny numbers. But, Terawolf is a larger company. And it has had, I'm going to go to the Terawolf. Let's go to the Terawolf chart because this Terawolf's gotten beaten up very, very badly. And today they had a nice recovery. But if you look at what's happened to them, it's even worse. All the Bitcoin miners have been roughed up. Since their highs in the middle of July, Terawolf is no different. If we look, July 20th was their high. July 13th was a green day. So that was their, from a daily candle standpoint, just like all the other miners, July 13th was their high. From a candle wick standpoint, they did get a little higher than that, up over $4 on July 20th. And, today they got under $1. So, I don't need to pull out the chart to do the ruler to do the math here. From the top to the bottom, that was over 75% in a 2.5 month period of time. That's ridiculous. So a lot of the Bitcoin miners were, the average Bitcoin miner was down somewhere between 40 and 50%. So it's not like everybody else did great and Terawolf got wrecked, but this was about as bad as it get. Mawson, I think, maybe did even a little bit worse than this. Let's take a look, but I think those were by far the two worst. Let's see where Mawson was from. This is from July 14th, but they're from a daily candle close standpoint, July 13th was their high as well. So from there until here, they're down, 78 or 79%. So they're a little worse. Those two are by far the worst. If I pick a random one, Georgia, one of the real ones.
Sorry.
Any Bitcoin miner, pick a miner, any miner.
Oh, I'll do your favorite, Bitfarms.
Okay, let's pick Bitfarms. All right, so in that same period of time, Bitfarms, and again, a daily candle on July 13th, but a candle wick on July 14th. So if we go from the top to the bottom, they were down 56%, but from the top until today, they're down 50%. So this is what I'm saying. Most of the other, and I think if I'll pick another one at random. The two largest, Riot and Marathon, let's see how they did. Marathon had a tough run because of that dilution. Let's just take a look at the two big ones, and then we'll be done with this. But, just to put it in perspective, Riot's down 52%, and a few days ago they were down 58%. So when you see Terawolf down, 75%, yes, that's actually a lot worse, but it's not like everybody else did great. Everybody had a brutal. We've been following this 11-week period. Every single week I've been counting it down. Week 7, week 8, week 9. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Marathon from the top to the bottom was down 63%. They're now down 59%. And inside of that, they also, converted $417 million of debt and got that off their balance sheet. So, and that was into equity. So while their stock was down, their market cap actually at one point was up. So their market cap's not down anywhere near what their stock is down. But you can see across the board, it's just been a brutal run for everybody. So nobody was immune.
Darren, thank you so much. In the past, BTC new all-time high 1 year from just now. What happens from now till then is just noise.
Darren, yes, thanks for the super chat. And that's a good point, because 1 year from now is somewhere 5-6 months after the halving, and that does seem to be. And the one thing I will say is, there's only been 3 halvings, but Bitcoin tends to really go ballistic after the halving. And to Darren's point, usually it takes 4, 5, 6 months. So that would put us a year from today. So whatever happens in the middle. Now, for some of the Bitcoin miners that are smaller, it might make a difference. So if you're investing in Bitcoin miners, if you pick the wrong one, it could make a difference. But if you're in the right one, or if you're just straight up in Bitcoin, and, if Bitcoin follows what it's done in the past, and there's an awful lot of catalysts that I think could get it there. I agree. I think 1 year from today we'll be at an all-time high. So I completely agree with that statement.
Does that mean all-time high, like above the 60-some thousand?
69,000 was our all-time high. I think 1 year from today
we'll
be
year from
above
today.
that.
So 10/6/2024.
Yeah, I think we'll be nicely above that.
Well, so hang on a second. Let's go back to my chart. We did this a year ago. And
yes.
I think, I'm going to do this again. And I'll just put that in there because I don't believe that. I wish that, but I don't believe that.
A year from today, I'm not trying to bias you, but I'm trying to bias you. So I'll just, while you're thinking.
I'm thinking, though.
I
don't know.
A year from today, we will, and this is not a guarantee, but picture, if you will, it's highly likely we're going to have not one Bitcoin ETF, but probably 8 or 10. And remember who's doing these ETFs. Altogether, the firms that will have ETFs, if this occurs the way we think it will, that's going to put maybe somewhere in the $20 to $25 trillion mark of assets under management that will now have direct exposure to Bitcoin. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying $25 trillion is going into Bitcoin. But let's say they put 1% of that into Bitcoin. What's that going to do to the price of Bitcoin? And what if they put 2%? And
Okay, give me three. I'm going to let you slide on this one. Give me 3 case scenarios. Worst case, most likely, best case.
For
10/6/2024.
10/6/2024. My worst case scenario would be $50,000. That would be almost a shocking disappointment to me, and it's not impossible. Just everybody knows as we're talking about this, nothing is impossible.
Most likely scenario.
I think the most likely scenario is we're going to be somewhere. I'm going to say $82,000.
Most likely?
Yep.
Whoa, I'm liking this. Best case.
I mean, the best case scenario, I don't think we're going to hit this, but, I think we could get, to $110,000.
Well, I know that's the best. That's why I said it best.
Those are my numbers. I feel good about them.
So there is one caveat that's in there that I don't think you took into consideration, and that's the election. And I think that the election in the United States, and I think that is one of the reasons why I don't give it the numbers that you give it.
Yeah, we'll be 1 month before an election.
Yes, yeah. And I think that it's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of chaos between now and from today to then. No, whenever it is, November, whatever. I think it'll just be, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that I would put my worst case scenario at 9,000. I've put my most likely scenario at 26,000.
You think the most likely scenario 1 year from today is 26,000?
26,000. And the best likely scenario, best case scenario to me would be 38,000.
You think that's the best case scenario?
Yeah. You're blown away, aren't you?
I'm speechless, sort of. I'm as speechless as I get.
We still have not shaked out 2 major problems that are gonna cause some problems for Bitcoin. That is Binance and Tether. If those 2 were taken care of, Tom, my predictions would be totally different.
So let's do a poll. Let's finish this one because we've got. Let's see where everybody's at. So, Bitcoin price at the halving. So in first place we have 43%, 35,000 to 45,000. I think that makes sense. I think that this reflects our group. I think reflects the broader market. That's where people have in mind. 15% think we're going to be under 35,000. Sounds like, George, you are in that 15%. 26% think we're going to be between 45 and 55. That's where I think we'll be, between 45 and 55. And then 15% think we'll be above 55,000. This is fairly similar to the last time we asked.
I have a question. Do you think any crypto will be very close or not bigger than Bitcoin a year from now?
I don't. In fact, I don't think there'll be a single cryptocurrency that is worth 50% of what Bitcoin is worth.
A year from now?
Yeah, I think there's... In my personal opinion, I would put the chances of that at less than 5%.
So 50%. So you think Tether's going to get destroyed then? I mean, Ethereum, sorry.
No, Ethereum's...
Ethereum's pretty close to 50%. It's 200 billion. Bitcoin right now is 550.
Yeah, that's a lot less than half. It would have to make up a lot of ground, and I think Bitcoin's going to do better than Ethereum. I'm not saying Ethereum's going to get destroyed. I don't like what
I think Ethereum's going to get destroyed. I think there's problems with Ethereum, and I think it's shaken out personally. Let's put it this way. What's his name? Stockmo and his prediction on Ethereum. That was another one. He was, dude, how do people watch him? Do you remember Neo? He loves Neo. Absolutely loves it. We went and looked past the videos. And then Ethereum, that was his coin. Do you remember this?
Yeah, he was big time, big. He probably, I don't know, I'm guessing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did 100 videos on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm just not, I think Ethereum screwed themselves. But I do expect it to double, at least from where it is today. But I can see a triple on that. I could see a double by next year. I just don't see a double on Bitcoin. I just don't. Oh, you're gonna do that as a poll?
Did I close out the other poll?
No, still open.
All right, so let me close out the other poll and we'll do a new poll. So this was fairly similar to the previous results. Most people are between, and this is a big range. So 35 to 45 is in first place by a mile, and 45 to 55 is in second. Now let's go.
Well,
Bitcoin.
I'll only pick up, by the way, when I talk about, if I ever talk about a YouTuber, I'll never pick on somebody that's smaller than us, but I'll pick on somebody who's a lot bigger than us. Does that make sense? I'll never pick down. I'll only pick up.
Call it punching down.
Yeah, I'll never
I don't want to punch
down.
in either direction.
That's
but I think
why
it's fair to mention people. I mean, a lot of people. He's a very well-known person. And
Yeah,
I think he can't possibly object to somebody saying he's very pro Ethereum. He's made hundreds of videos on it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying
it's his
anything
thing.
bad about him. I know. I mean, I agree with you. My only problem is this whole thing with Tether is gonna, when it implodes or explodes or whatever you want to call it, it's gonna really bring the price of Bitcoin down. And same with the Binance, when they, either put the cuffs on CZ, or they come up with the story of what has happened. Here's the problem. I believe the numbers of all-time high were overinflated because of a manipulation done probably by CZ. I don't have any proof of that. This is speculation. And I'm not saying CZ's a bad guy or anything like that. I don't even know him. But I'm thinking, when you're not regulated, there's things you can do to, you send an email and everybody pumps something. This day you pump it, this day you get out. This day you pump it, this day you get out. And I mean, think of how easy this would be. It's not hard. It's not rocket scientists,
Sourmel Gaming says, I want what George is smoking. Respectfully. George, I will speak for George. George doesn't smoke. He does not do drugs. He does not drink. However you feel about that, that's been true. That's just who George is. Look, this is George without any of that. So
this is how I always am, guys. I'm not any different.
He doesn't.
I will just give you. Tom and I did a prediction a year ago on December 2, 2023. Tom's prediction, and I'm not saying he's wrong or right. I'm just telling you his predictions, because mine aren't even close either.
Yeah, let's go through, because I think I missed on one end and you missed on the other.
Yeah, Tom, worst 25, most likely 60, best 75. George, worst 3K, most likely 17.5, best likely was 25K. So we're both wrong, so I mean, take that for what it's worth.
And this is the way the prediction game goes. So there's
no doubt. But here's the thing: we're not to December.
That's true. That was the end of our end of the year target.
Yeah, this is December 2nd, and I still see my best likely to be 25. I still see that to be into play.
We'll definitely revisit that when the time comes.
And this isn't, I'm not picking on Tom and Tom's not picking on George. We're just saying what we think. Tom could be right and George could be wrong. George could be right and Tom could be wrong.
This is the hardest part about not just Bitcoin, but everything. And it's why, before I press go on this poll, it's why dollar cost averaging is such a popular strategy, because the truth is nobody knows what tomorrow brings or next month. We can all use our judgment. You know, we could do analysis of many different kinds and try and take our most reasonable guess as to what's going to happen in the short term.
Right.
My personal statement has always been, at some point, whether it's a stock or a commodity or whatever the case may be, at some point in the future, an asset will cross paths with its fair market value. Right? And that may be a moment in time. I don't know when that moment in time is. For some assets, for most of the other moments, it's wildly overinflated. For a lot of other assets, it's wildly under where it should be. But at some point, if you wait long enough, it will cross paths with its fair market value. So if you have patience, and this is what, you know, a lot of the tried and true, you know, wealthiest investors have done over the course of their lifetime. But it's not easy. It's not easy to be a long-term investor. I know we do have a lot of long-term investors in here.
It's so hard for me. Sorry.
There's a lot of other strategies you can do. You can be a dollar cost average long-term investor and use options and other vehicles to do some other things, you know, in a shorter time frame to try to, you know, make money as you wait. Or at least hedge yourself against, you know, big losses. So there's a lot of different ways. There's no one right way to play the market. Let me post this thing here. So, all right. This is based on, I did this based on mine and George's predictions. So I gave 4 choices. This is for 12 months from today. So 12 months from today, which is about 5 months after the halving, and to George's point, about 1 month before a presidential election in the U.S., do you think Bitcoin is going to be at $25,000 or less? Do you think it's going to be around $50,000? Do you think it's going to be around $75,000? Or do you think it's going to be $100,000 or higher? So again, that'll be 12 months from today, 5 months after a halving, approximately, and 1 month before a presidential election in the U.S. Those are the big landmarks, if you will.
I love watching it in real time, watching the votes and the graphs go up and down and up and down. I'm glad some people agreed with me at 25 or less, 16%.
This is going to be fascinating.
I'll be in the lowest. Yeah, I know it will be.
Because a year from now is going to start to tell a story. Because if we're not at a certain place a year from now, then the Bitcoin cycle will be broken. And that could be the case in either direction. We don't know.
And that's my whole point. My whole point is, I remember I was screaming it. Everybody was hating me. And I was saying that I think what is breaking. That was back in December of last year. I was saying I feel like Bitcoin is breaking. I was saying that Bitcoin isn't living up to what it's supposed to do. And I think the reason why that is because, what is it called? The oracles?
The ordinals?
Ordinals? I can never remember that. The ordinals have not taken off yet. When those take off, I think that's when you start to see a very good, healthy Bitcoin.
By the way, we just had a little pump while we were talking in Bitcoin. We got up to, and we're pulling back a little, we're at 28,082, but we got up to 28,286. That is the high on the day. That is the high since Monday. So that brings us all the way back to where we were on Monday. So full circle here on the week. We spent the entire week underneath that.
I'll tell you another thing too, is that just because I think that today doesn't mean that next week I'll think the exact same thing. So my predictions might change, but right now, again, with the uncertainty in crypto, and here's the other thing too, and this is why, I mean, this is actually in your favor, Tom, of Bitcoin being higher, is that retail people are unfortunately out of this game. There's very few retail people in crypto now. Did you know that, Tom?
Yeah, the volume is down. I know, you know more about the crypto side of the volume. I know in the Bitcoin
So
miners, retail investors have run to the hills for the most part.
so think about this: is we need new money to come into crypto. We need that ETF, and that's really the only thing you're really. Would you agree with that you're hanging your hat on?
I
Is
think
that ETF?
it's a big piece of the puzzle, but I think even without the ETF, that's a big piece of the puzzle. But even without the ETF, there's a lot of other things I think that are going to occur in the way of regulation, which usually to me is a bad word, but in this instance, until we get some clarity, regulation right now means clarity for Bitcoin. I think that's causing some sideways. I do think that I'm going to say it, the ESG narrative, I think, has run its course. It's coming to an end. And in fact, I think we could be in a world where that's actually now a positive talking point for Bitcoin,
So
in between now and 12 months from now.
I'll give you a good one, Crypto Fever. There is a guy that I watch on TikTok. I haven't seen him. He hasn't done a TikTok in a long time. That he went all into Bitcoin around $50,000. He ended up, he's like probably in his 30s. I, you guys probably know him if you do TikTok. I don't know. But this poor guy has hold of those Bitcoin all this time. And I think just recently he sold a couple of them because he needed the money. And if you look at the retail people out there, they went from having, and when I say retail, that's us, you and I, the people in the United States. We went from having $3.5 trillion saved to $1 trillion in credit card debt. Those people that bought Bitcoin at $50,000, I don't think are holding those Bitcoin anymore because they had to pay off their credit cards. That's what I believe.
Those are the retail investors that got
Yes,
burned.
right. And
And
look
there's
at
no
what these
doubt there's
people
a big
do.
group of them. And there's a big group inside to substitute Bitcoin for the Bitcoin miners. There's an
Yeah,
awful lot of people that this was just too long to hold on. It was too brutal of a rundown,
right.
and they bought high or higher and sold low. This is the age old story across the market, and it's definitely been true for Bitcoin. But
And the
like
other,
a lot of these things, at some point they turn the corner and they do their thing. The question
and
is
here's,
when.
and you're right, exactly. I agree with that. And again, that's why I say those two caveats of what's out there in the crypto world with Tether. Tether is a freaking train wreck. And when it happens, and I don't even know how it has it now. I can't even believe the SEC hasn't went after Tether because Tether is a train wreck. So what that means to me is that there is somebody knows something, and that it's more devious than we can possibly imagine. That's what I believe. Sorry, I'm a wacko. I know it's okay.
Edmund
No
saying George
offense.
the having
Yeah,
must.
hey, got that.
Go
No
ahead.
offense, but you're an asshole. Sorry, I don't mind.
George could take it. Been called worse today.
I average every just so everybody knows, I'm not changing. So with Operation Choke Point, which the guy that worked at State Farm told us about.
That's right. This this
With
Jake, I believe that
Operation
was
Choke
Jake
Point.
himself.
Operation Choke Point. I currently every single week has been putting money into Bitcoin, and I have not changed that.
So you're dollar cost averaging, and you're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
see.
I'm
And if
not.
it takes a year, if it takes 3 years, whatever it takes, you're still. You've always said, so let's see if you're still. I think you are, but I'll ask the question. Long term, 2 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be, long term, are you bullish on Bitcoin?
Long term, have not changed. I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. But I think long term is 3 years. I think the next year, year and a half, I think we still have about 18 months to shake out what we have to shake out. I think there's going to be a lot of things shaken out here. I think in the next year, I can't go there. I just think that this is going to be a real interesting year coming up in 2024.
Well, the 2022 was pretty interesting. 2023,
Yeah,
so no reason
I
to
think
believe
we
2024 is
still
going to be any
have.
different.
I think that, let's be honest, we're at $33 trillion in debt. It's finally to the point where interest on our loans is more than the money that we give out or that we have to run the government. Is that correct, Tom?
Say that again.
That now interest on the debt that we have is finally to a tipping point where it's more money than we use to pay our bills for other things.
You're saying it's the majority
Yes, the
of.
majority of the money that we have to collect.
I
So
don't. I don't.
that
I
that
don't know if it's more. I don't know if it's our big. I don't know if it's past defense yet, but obviously it's
what's defense at?
massively larger than.
What
I
do
think
you think
defense
defense
has
is?
always been around 700 billion. So
Yeah, it's
you
a
know,
trillion.
so it's yeah. If it hasn't
It's
passed
a
it, it's
trillion.
going to.
It's a trillion.
So it's our number one
yeah.
expense. But
Well, it's
that's
our number one expense.
that
And
is
so
a
with
reason. Go ahead. You finish first.
yeah. So that is the reason why I say that we have much bigger problems and that's one of the reasons why I don't see Bitcoin taking off. Now, listen, if the stock market falls apart next week or the week after, I think that there's an opportunity for Bitcoin to go parabolic. But that has to happen, and I don't know if that's going to happen because we have an election next year, and everybody knows they're going to do everything they possibly can not to let the stock market fall apart because it's like the only thing we really have to look at. Sorry.
And it's been a rough run on the stock
Yeah.
market lately. In case anybody hasn't noticed, which I'm sure everybody has, this hasn't been the greatest run lately. The last few weeks, anyway. Today was good. We had two good days this week.
And here's the other thing too is that companies use debt for their business. That's just how they've been taught. They use debt, and that debt rolls over every 2 years, Tom?
Well, I mean, it depends on the company. You're talking about in general
In general, it rolls over every 2 years, 3 years.
for corporate debt. I mean,
Yeah, for corporate debt.
and our government debt is a little different than that, and but even if at 2 years, it's a disaster for us based on what's happened with interest rates. Everything George just said is why I still very strongly believe, no matter what Jerome Powell says, no matter what everybody else is talking about, interest rates are going to go down in the next 12 months, in my opinion. And
they have to.
The worse things get, the faster they're going to go down. And we've seen this movie before. When there have been 2 times where they just dropped interest rates. And there was one time recently where they just almost immediately just took them right back to zero. So don't think that's not on the table. If things get ugly enough, they have zeros on the table. So we're at a many year high right now. We just had 10 rate hikes in a row, and then they took a meeting or 2 off and did one more, and now I think they're done. And I think that now they're trying to lead us to believe, we're not going to get rate hikes maybe until late in 2024, if at all. I think that's a fairy tale. I think not rate hikes, lowering the rates. I think that's going to come faster and more furious than people think. In addition to that, hand in hand with that will come the quantitative easing. And the thing is, it's a double whammy because we've gone through some of the most severe quantitative tightening we've ever had, and that's what's strangling this market. And let me bring up another chart because it's what's causing another effect that is really destroying the market and, in my opinion, Bitcoin in specific. I want to go to the 1 day.
And as you do that, Tom, let me say something because crypto's saying something to me, Crypto Fever. Here's my thing. If Bitcoin was going to take off and be a solid asset or a mature asset as we're currently talking about, Apple would have bought some. Apple has not bought any. Google has no holdings. Once these guys move into Bitcoin, I'll have a different perspective on Bitcoin. But until that, I mean, you got these guys that have all this money. One of the probably the best things Elon Musk did is get out of crypto, get out of Bitcoin right now. I know people are going to think that one's a weird one, but I think that was actually a good one because they've come after him for everything. They've gone after him for everything. So I think that I could be wrong, but once they get into this market, then I think Bitcoin becomes a more of a safer play. But until then, no, I don't think it's a safe play.
Let me respond to that, but first I want to get to Mr. J, who did a member post. Mr. J has been a member for 5 months. Thank you very much. Mr. J said, I might get my rate hike November 1st. Buy DCA, blood in the streets, dry powder for CPI next week. We didn't even talk about that. Long-term capital gains versus short-term capital gains, taxes. Keep your money. So you're waiting. Mr. J's waiting for some more, keeping some dry powder, waiting for some blood in the streets. If we get a rate hike, the market's going to get, in my personal opinion, the market will get whacked if we have one more rate hike. And
Tom,
it's not out of the question. If we do, I think, the rate decreases are coming up fast right behind it.
Tom, in Gap, could you buy? You know what I mean.
Generally accepted accounting principles.
Yeah. Can you buy? Could Apple buy Bitcoin right now?
For Apple, like all companies, right now, the way generally accepted accounting principles are, the way that they would have to put them on their quarterly reports, and more importantly, their 10K, their annual report that's audited, the treatment for Bitcoin is extremely punitive. It is one of the things that's stopping these companies from buying Bitcoin. That they have already decided to change that treatment, and that's going to get implemented by companies over the next, depending on early adoption, over the next year to 2 years, companies will convert to that. I would be fairly certain MicroStrategy will be the first one to convert to that because they will have an immediate $2 billion improvement in their balance sheet when that happens. And that's if Bitcoin doesn't go up a penny from now. It could be much more than that. So there's a very punitive, it's a very unusual treatment. I don't understand how it ever got to where it is. Before anybody knew what Bitcoin was, essentially they treat it like an intangible asset, which has you got to write it down, but you can't write it back up. So, all these companies are essentially, that means these companies have to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet at hit $15,500 back in November of 2022. So any Bitcoin that they bought from the beginning of time to November 2022 is still today on their balance sheet at $15,500. It's a very punitive system. That's going to change. And when that changes, there will be a lot more institutions. Now, the big institutions like Apple itself is over 5 times, the market cap of Apple's over 5 times the market cap of Bitcoin. It's 3 times the market cap of all cryptocurrency put together. So I think for some of those reasons, companies like Apple and Google and Microsoft and Amazon, they really couldn't care less about Bitcoin because it's so small compared to what they do, even if they owned all of it. It's so small at the moment, I don't think they want to mess around. There's no benefit. They'd be dabbling. It would be immaterial to what they do.
Right, but at some point in time, I don't agree with that statement. I agree with that statement today, but I don't agree with that statement when it's more of a security.
When Bitcoin gets where it's going, you're right.
Right.
And so for those companies that are smart, that's going to be a big signal. I'm not disagreeing with you, George. I think when we see those companies I just talked about, and Apple's the kind of company where they have $100 trillion. I'm
right.
sorry, got carried away with my trillions.
100
They have
billion?
over $100 billion of cash sitting on the sidelines at any given moment. So for them to go put $5 or $10 billion in
Yeah.
Bitcoin, it would just be a nice hedge against the possibility of Bitcoin doing what it's supposed to ultimately do. And they would be a lot smarter to do it now than to get in when it 5x's or 10x's, if you think that's where Bitcoin's going. But they may feel they have time. They may feel the same way that you do right now, that, the next 12 to 18 months, they don't need to worry about it.
Well, and I think that marathon kind of signaled that, we were kind of at the top of where Bitcoin is going to be for the year at least.
I got the impression from our interview with Fred that
Whoa.
they thought that Marathon thinks there's the more likely case scenario is that Bitcoin is not really going to move between now and the halving. That's
Right, yeah.
definitely the sense that I got. And you guys watched so you can see what your takeaway was, but that's the sense that I got from talking to him. That doesn't mean he's right either. There's
Oh, see, crypto fever? See, I agree with that statement. That's why I'm not 100% believing in Bitcoin yet. This has been fun,
what's
guys.
the statement?
The statement is to be more beneficial for them to invest in cash than holding a deflationary asset like cash.
Yes. That's the theory. That's what we all believe Bitcoin's going to be. The chart that I was going to show you goes to, and this goes to, back to our conversation that we were having about rate increases, quantitative tightening. This is the DXY. This is the US dollar versus a basket of other currencies around the world. This green line is a 20-year high. You can see we've been going above and below this 20-year high. And since, remember, July 13th was Bitcoin's high for 2023, while July 14th was the DXY's low for the year 2023. So these have an absolute direct inverse relationship. This strength in the dollar, I keep calling it an unreasonable strength in the US dollar, is hurting the stock market. It has a massive downward pressure on Bitcoin. And the fact that during half of this run, as the DXY continued to run to the upside, and you'll see we're a few days into it pulling back a little bit, but still at historically high levels, Bitcoin's remained sideways and gone up a little bit. So Bitcoin's been very strong given the fact that this is what the DXY is doing. And I do believe it's a matter of time when we reverse our policy on rate hikes, when we reverse our policy on quantitative tightening and flip it into quantitative easing, you're going to see this number come back down to reality. And if I zoom out a little, I'm going to go to the 1 week instead of the 1 day, and you're going to see just how unreasonably high we are right now. This low here, this was down here at 89, so call it 90. This was in the middle of 2021. Every once in a while, from time to time, it bounces off of this line, and it's really only been a few times in the last. This is 20 years ago. This is December of 2002. So we've only had 2 times in that, 2016, and we didn't even really get to it in March of 2020. We all know what happened there. So only twice did we ever get to this, and now we just blew the lid off of it, and we've been in this world since May of 2022, so coming up on a year and a half of just pure massive downward pressure on not only the market, but Bitcoin in specific. This has to break, and history shows us that this will break. For the last 20 years, we've been anywhere from under this to drastically under this as far as the strength of the dollar goes. And it's hurting the U.S. economy. This is not good for the world. It's not good for the U.S. Nobody wins in this scenario, in my opinion.
But here's what's scary though, Tom, and this is the other side of that coin, is the dollar's that strong, and look at what inflation is. So when that dollar comes down, inflation's going back up. And that's the problem. I think we're in a bad situation with the dollar right now.
You may be
Dollar's way too
right that
high.
inflation, the Fed's been fixated on this for a long, after they ignored it and said it was transitory for a year and did nothing about it. They've been hyper focused on it ever since then, and I don't blame them for they were late to the party, but they had to be hyper focused. But at some point,
When it breaks though, Tom, I think it's going to be I think we're going into hyperinflation.
I can only hope that we don't go into hyperinflation. That's really only ever happened. We had stagflation in the Jimmy Carter era.
Yep. That's what's coming.
And even that's not, there have been countries that have had true hyperinflation that, is a game ender. But,
yeah.
Are we going to get into some stagflation type numbers?
There's a possibility, Tom. There really is a possibility of that.
I can't, absolutely. You cannot rule that out.
You can't rule it out right now. I mean, just with the fiscal policy, if you listen to our fiscal people, they're not too fiscal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, they're just in this obsession with this obsession. I'm trying to think of a way to say this without getting people to hate me. This obsession with playing this political game that they're playing is getting out of control. I think that's a good way to say it, right? By the way, guys, I have not stopped dollar cost averaging every single week into Bitcoin.
Let's see what
I'm not going to stop
think.
doing that. I'm just telling you that I'm still worried about Bitcoin for the next about 18 months.
We'll weigh in on our poll. We got a bunch of votes now.
What do we get? Let's see.
We're all over the place. This really speaks to the fact, and we've been talking about this for months, and our internal polling here on the channel has been showing we're all over the place. Nobody really knows quite what to expect here.
Right.
In first place was $50,000. So a year from now, which would be 5 months after the halving. So to put it in perspective, that would be by far the worst performance Bitcoin's ever had in a cycle. Not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying that will be confirmation that the Bitcoin cycle is broken. That would be drastically lower than at any other point in any Bitcoin cycle we've ever had. But that came in first place. 44%.
Tom, I have a question. Do you think I'm going to answer that crypto? I'm going to hear what Tom thinks of that crypto-rich crypto. We only see hyperinflation as the U.S. dollar is no longer the global reserve asset. Today, it's still the current global reserve asset, Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I believe it will stay that way for some time, not forever. Nothing lasts forever, but I think that, there's a lot of other talk about other things happening, but I think we're many, 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 many years away from that changing. JR is saying at Talking Investing, Tom, take a trip to a beautiful far off place and see if you don't like a strong U.S. dollar.
Yeah. I mean, I like a strong U.S. dollar, but it's just...
I like a healthy U.S. dollar. Yeah. When it gets too strong, look at the problems. When it gets this strong, there's a reason for it, and we're sitting here... Right now, the dollar's this strong because the Fed has an equation that it's staring at. It's either got to worry about runaway inflation, but on the other side of this, remember, 3 of the 4 largest bank failures in the history of time happened this year. And if they can't get control of this on the other side, you're going to see a financial collapse.
Yes.
So this is bad. This is a rock and a hard place, and when the dollar is overly strong. So I'm all for a very healthy, strong, vibrant U.S. dollar. I think that does help the world. When it's this strong, what that really means is, the whole world is struggling, in my opinion. But I understand your point. I don't want a weak dollar. That's not what I'm rooting for. Just a little bit more of a normal situation.
Tom, and talking about a worst case scenario, if we have a financial meltdown or collapse, You know, you have all these people. We're not even talking about like current events, which we should be talking about a little bit. And that was all these different industries have been striking. Like the latest one was Kaiser. Did you hear about that one?
Nope.
Okay, so Kaiser decided they're not being paid enough, and let's be honest, nobody's being paid enough because of what inflation has done since these last few years have rolled around. Let's be honest, nobody's paid what they deserve to outpace this rise in inflation. So everybody's getting screwed on money compensation. I mean, I hope everybody agrees with that statement.
I'm going to find an article that goes to your point if I can interject. This was an article. This was today in Benzinga. $150,000 salaries aren't enough anymore. And this is not me saying this is the article. 1/3 of high earners are still trapped living paycheck to paycheck and can't get ahead. So it goes on to talk about this. And, you know, obviously the vast majority of people don't make anywhere near this. But even at 150,000, people are finding they can't save any money and they're having to dip into any existing savings or borrow money.
Right.
And when you go to lower numbers, you know, at $50,000, that number's at 65%, you know, so there's an awful lot of people at best living paycheck to paycheck right now. Even people making, you know, in my lifetime, when I look at $150,000 salary, to me, that in the past, that has always meant you're doing very well, right? You're not living the lifestyles of the rich and famous, you know, with private jets and whatnot. But that's always been an excellent. You're certainly not worried about paycheck to paycheck. But now all of a sudden we're finding, you know, that depending on where you live, even that's not enough. So this is to George's point. Like there's struggles all over.
Sorry. Little side note, Dr. J said, when you are the toughest kid in the playground, nobody wants to play with you. I'm going to take that as a compliment, Dr. J. I mean, Mr. J. He's saying I'm the toughest guy in the neighborhood. I know he probably didn't mean that.
That's George's interpretation of that.
I mean, I personally still believe that there is something still coming down the pipeline with companies and in the stock market. I mean, I don't believe that the stock market is trading anything on fundamentals. And I think that went away about 15 years ago. Tom, do you mind sharing what your annual income is in accounting? It's zero.
Right now, I don't do accounting, so it's zero. But when I was in accounting, I mean, I've had a lot of good years. I've had a couple of years where I'm doing YouTube, and my income's pretty close to zero right now. So, you know, it depends. Listen, I'm never going to complain. I've had some very good years and been fortunate. And you know, for those of you who are in accounting can be a very lucrative field to be in. So I'm not complaining. I'm just, you know, trying to point out an article that, you know, even at some of these larger numbers, 150, I don't care. Even if you're somebody out there who makes $500,000 a year or $1 million a year, I would still think your perspective would be that, you know, in your mind, you would think, hey, if somebody's making 150 grand, they're doing pretty well. They're doing just fine. Yeah. They're not living paycheck to paycheck. That's a lot of money. So, you know, one thing's got nothing to do with the other. I know a lot of people make a lot more money than that, but to me, regardless of that, I still would think 150,000 ought to pay the bills. And the fact that, you know, it's not for some people is, you know, that's disturbing.
I mean, do you think we're going to have a wave of foreclosures, Tom, or no?
I still hear more people talking about, and this may be a bad sign, the majority of people that I spoke to, and I got to speak to a lot of different people when I went away, in the industry, out of the industry, and right now consensus is that on the higher end, housing is still very strong. Now, it's very regional. I know there's some people on the west coast of the U.S. that are feeling very differently than that. But on the East Coast, particularly the Southeast United States, and I know we have people from all over the world, so to some extent, real estate is local. So you can let us know how real estate's doing in your market, in your part of the world, wherever you may be. But for, you know, the East Coast of the United States and particularly the Southeast Coast, the consensus seems to be that the market is very strong and that's not going anywhere.
Hey, let's see if we can get to 140. Is that the high, Tom?
On likes,
Likes.
I don't
Let's
know what our
see.
all-time like high
I think it might be
is.
156. If you do like this content and you think Tom is right, please click the thumbs up. The
About
like.
anything.
That
If you
means
think
you
I'm
like
right
it.
about any, I've said a lot. If even more,
Now,
if
now,
anything's right.
but put the thumbs down. Put the thumbs down if you think George
I,
is right.
I mean,
I don't want to be. Guys, here's the beauty of my position. I don't want to be right. I want to be wrong. I mean, that's my whole point. I don't want to be right. But I think there's a lot of just little things. Dr. I keep calling you Dr. J.
Dr. J.
Mr. J. I'm going to always call you Dr. J. Thank you for gifting Peter G7675 a membership. We really appreciate that. Tom, isn't there some videos and stuff like that already in there for him?
Yeah, there's a bunch of videos, so welcome to the Talking Investing Squad. There's a bunch of videos, deep dives that we've already done over the course of time, so you can check those out. You can join us Tuesday after the market closes on the live stream. And if anybody is hanging around and you're not a member, if you're not subscribed, obviously it's free to subscribe, so it also helps the channel. You can smash the subscribe button. And if you're not a member, membership does have its privileges. We try to provide an awful lot of content for $5 a month. In my opinion, you know, you guys let me know, members, let me know if you feel like that's a fair, you're getting a fair deal or your money's worth. I know I feel like I'm working for it, so.
Tom, can you believe we've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes?
That's incredible. See, time
I know,
flies.
and
We're
I
having a
mean,
great
I can keep
conversation.
going.
Yeah, we should. Well, with that said, we should probably start to wrap it up. That's a long time, but
yeah, it's been fun,
great...
guys. I hope it's been enjoyable for you because this is interesting to me to just kind of come together and all, you know, air out our viewpoints. But I mean, honestly, I think that Bitcoin miners are a great investment at this point in time, more than ever before. This is not financial advice, of course, but for me, I will probably be moving another amount of money in. I almost did it today, Tom. I had to like stop myself not to do it. I wish I would have now, because if Bitcoin keeps this little pump on the weekend, but it always seems to disappoint us come Monday morning. So,
well, that's right. It'll maybe run up over the weekend, and we'll be right back where we started Monday morning. That wouldn't be the first time, and it probably won't be the last. But we'll see what happens. I remain optimistic about October. I'm sticking with that. Let's see. Robert said, if you're struggling over 150K, you're doing something wrong. I mean, that's what it feels like. That's my knee-jerk reaction is, man, if you can't get by on 150K. But there are some cities where people live that I know the cost of living is just astronomical. And, you know, housing is a big part of that. Whether you own your own home or, you know, rent has spiraled in certain cities here to where, you know, it can be tough. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
who do the Bills play this weekend, Tom?
Do the Bills?
You know?
The Bills play the Jaguars in London this weekend.
Oh, that's the Sunday morning game, right?
That is the Sunday morning game. So we'll see if they have a hangover after a big win last week. Ironhead said, cheers for another good night. Thank you, Ironhead. John Q. Public said, thanks, Tom and George. Love your chat. Thanks. Appreciate you being here.
Definitely $2 chances $5. I gotta go, or I'm gonna get a divorce. Don't want that. I'll see you guys.
All right, George. Have a great weekend.
God bless everyone. Peace out.
Thank you, and have a good weekend. I'll wrap up by going through the results of this poll. So there are 13% of the people out there that think we're going to be at 25,000 or less a full year from now. So that's another year of going sideways. In which case, then I would agree with the people that say, then I would say most of the Bitcoin miners will be wiped out. Still, I'm saying maybe 75%. There are some Bitcoin miners that, their stock may be beaten up. No, not maybe. It will be beaten up badly. But, in my opinion, Riot with their balance sheet, Marathon with their balance sheet, Hut with their balance sheet. I think the way CleanSpark has positioned themselves, beyond that, Cypher, I think, will be okay. So there's a bunch that would survive that, but that is a nightmare scenario in my opinion. But there's 13% that think 25,000 or less, even 5 months after the halving. 44% think 50,000, 23% think 75,000, and 20% 100,000 or higher. So we do have, that's 43% think 75,000 or higher, 50% think, 44% at 50,000. So we're all over the place. We'll see what happens. We'll keep doing this poll, and let's see where Bitcoin goes. Let's see how we feel at the end of October. I'm focused, short term, I'm focused on getting this run to 32,000 that I think is long overdue. And then long term, we'll see how long it takes to get where we're going. I see everybody saying thank you and good night. And I want to say thanks to everybody that joined us. Thank you. Special thanks to all of the members for your support. Thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks to everybody that smashed the like button. We had a nice Green Friday, so hopefully that leaves everybody with a good start to your weekend. So everybody enjoy your weekend, and thanks again for joining us here. To members, we'll see you on the live stream on Tuesday, and of course, we're here every week on Friday. Thanks a lot, and have a great weekend.